और आपने अब तक की बर्बादी लाई क्यों? पहले उनका जवाब मांगो भाई। नंबर 1। नंबर 2, एक्सरे का मतलब क्या है जी? मतलब हर परिवार में जाना, घर घर छापा मारना, अगर किसी अनाज के डिब्बे में किसी महिला ने अपने गहने छपा के रखे हैं, उसको भी एक्सरे किया जाएगा, उनके गहने ले लिए जाएंगे, जमीनों का हिसाब किताब किया जाएगा और फिर उसको रिडिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेंगे। ये दुनिया में एक माओवादी विचार ने सब किया हुआ है। दुनिया बर्बाद हो चुकी है। ये पूरी तरह अर्बन नक्सल उस सोच का सीधा सीधा प्रकटीकरण है।
That was Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the campaign trail in 2024, warning the country that the caste census is an urban Naxal idea, a tool to divide the nation, a dangerous demand. And yet, just a year later in 2025, his own government announced that they will be doing a caste census.
The Cabinet Committee of Political Affairs has decided today, that is 30th April 2025, that caste enumeration should be included in the forthcoming census.
There is no date, no budget, there are no details, just a vague promise tucked inside a bureaucratic sentence. They were supposed to do a census in 2021, but they didn't. The excuse given back then was COVID. Now, 4 years later, they are still not giving a solid date for even conducting a normal census, let alone a caste census. Right now, all of this announcement and all of what has happened is just vibes. But needless to say, this announcement is triggering some very awkward Bhakt meltdowns. Remember that Twitter user who proudly launched the Brahmin Jeans hashtag to celebrate her supposed intellectual and I guess physical superiority? She is now passionately opposing the caste census as well. Apparently, this wonderful lady here loves her caste pride until someone tries to count it. And it's not just her, by the way. There are many people who are extremely uncomfortable with the idea of conducting a caste census. Why? Because they are uncomfortable with acknowledging the very dark reality of India today, where caste is still a thing. It's still a systemic rot in our democracy. It's like a virus that entered our operating system thousands of years ago and just refuses to leave. Yeah, we are not as modern as we think as a society. Just because you don't see caste or experience it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So, let's talk about this. This is a video about the caste census, what it is and why we need it. This is a video about why the WhatsApp uncle driven merit hona chahiye arguments are kind of garbage. This is a video about why the elite in India across ideological spectrums are so terrified of it. On that, I have a bunch of thoughts. If this is the first time you are watching this channel, let me tell you something about how this goes. I start with the very basics, like so basic that you would be like, dude, this is all so basic. Come on, I know all of this. But bear with me because you will realize that all of it connects together in the end. So be patient with me and watch till the end. Please increase my average watch duration. Please, that's all I care about. I don't care about views. I want average watch duration. Also, this video is going to be intense and brutal at times, so prepare your brain a bit. Anyway, don't say I didn't warn you. Now, let's start with caste. What is it? Right at the beginning, let me tell you a cold hard fact. If you are someone who belongs to the upper caste, then you have probably never experienced it. If you belong to a lower caste, You have been reminded of it again and again, whether you like it or not. Caste is a rigid birth-based hierarchy. You're born into a group and that group decides everything for you. Your last name, your job, your marriage, your seat at the table, if you even get a seat at the table, all of that. Long ago, it was dressed up as 4 Varnas: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. The first being the most powerful, socially powerful caste, and the last one being the least. But don't get fooled by this convenient 4-box Manusmriti fantasy. India has thousands of jatis or castes. There are caste subgroups as well. Each one with their own statuses, restrictions, stigmas, cultures as well. All of them vary according to state and region. While one caste would be powerful in Gujarat, the same one might be less powerful in Jharkhand. But one thing is certain. None of this is based on merit. None of it. It's based on birth. Okay, think about it this way. There are 2 babies. 2 babies are born on the same day in the same hospital. One is an upper caste baby, the second is a lower caste baby. From that moment on, their lives will be judged, slotted, sorted by something that they didn't choose because they are babies. Caste is not just an identity, it's infrastructure. It decides who gets land, who gets loans, who gets hired. It decides who we trust, who we fear, who we let into our homes, and who can drink water into our home and from which glass as well. And yes, caste exists as a subset in every religion in India. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. It exists across religions. So caste is not a thing of the past. It's right here shaping every election, every institution, every opportunity. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it does not exist. In fact, if you are someone who thinks, hey, I'm not casteist, I don't consider caste before I interact with people, why should I care? Then come here. I need to tell you something. It's not about whether you care about it. It's about whether society around you cares about it. It's about whether the system cares about it. And believe you me, our society cares about it a lot. A lot. Upper caste privilege in a lot of ways is like air. Invisible to those who breathe it every day, suffocating those who don't have it. You don't see it because you've never been without it. But for everyone else, it's like an invisible wall, blocking access to dignity, education, opportunity, and wealth. The problem isn't just that caste exists in our society. The real problem is that we have made it invisible. Privileged people in power don't want you to see it, and they don't want to deal with it. For them, even counting it feels dangerous. Speaking of counting dangerous things, told you I start from the basics. So here's the second basic concept you need to understand in this video. What is a census? A census is basically a giant head count. Every 10 years, the government of India has the exclusive right to count every single person living in the country. Where they live, what they do, what language they speak, whether they have a job or not, etc. Lot of details. This isn't just a formality, by the way. This data decides how much money is spent, which area gets how much electricity, how many schools or hospitals are built, and even how Lok Sabha seats are allocated. Basically, the census is what decides the policies being implemented and money being spent on them. It's a big deal. Like 8,754 crore rupees big deal. That's what the Modi government originally set aside to do in the 2021 census. I mean, that's how much they wanted to spend on it. Spoiler alert, that census never happened. Yeah, they said it was COVID back then. Now they have even stopped giving excuses. And that delay had some horrifying consequences. Listen to Professor Ritika Khera talk about it.
लेकिन दुख की बात ये है कि वो 80 करोड़ अभी भी 2013 में पारित हुए कानून का जो आंकड़ा था वो वहीं फंस गया है, क्योंकि इस बार की जो जनगणना थी 2021 की वो हम नहीं कर पाए। ये स्वतंत्र भारत में पहली बार हुआ है कि हमने जनगणना ही नहीं की, और इसका पीडीएस से ये ताल्लुक है कि कानून में लिखा था, खाद्य सुरक्षा कानून में, कि आपको शहरी क्षेत्र का 50% और ग्रामीण क्षेत्र का 75% इसमें शामिल करना है। उस समय 2011 की जनगणना पे ये प्रतिशत लगाए गए थे, तब हमें 80 करोड़ का नंबर मिला। अब अगर 2021 में जनगणना हो जाती और उसकी आबादी पे हम अगर ये 50% और 75% लगाते हैं तो 10 करोड़ लोग पूरे देश में और जुड़ेंगे।
Basically, 10 crore people are not getting ration today because the census didn't happen for the last 14 years. 10 crore people are not getting ration. Just let that sink in for a bit. Okay, so this whole massive head count exercise, the biggest administrative data operation in the world, collects all sorts of data, but doesn't count caste. Well, not completely. This is a form that every person who conducts the census carries with them to record household data. See that little question there? Yeah, they already ask for caste data but in an incomplete way. They count scheduled castes and scheduled tribes because that is constitutionally required, but they don't count other backward classes or OBCs. Which is weird because caste still decides so much, from education and employment to land and loans and hiring. But we have no actual nationwide data on how many people belong to which caste. The last time India counted all castes was in 1931. Yes, before independence, and the British did it. Then in 2011, the UPA government tried again with something called the socio-economic caste census. But guess what? They collected the caste data and never released it. Why? Because the numbers were messy, politically dangerous, too real. And my feeling is that a lot of powerful people in power didn't like what they saw. And that is the heart of the issue, my friends. Caste data threatens the myth of merit. It messes with the comfortable lie that everyone has an equal chance in India, that we are all living in some idealistic merit-based wonderland. Because once you know who exactly has how much land, income, education, jobs, you start asking some uncomfortable questions. Like, who is hoarding all this opportunity? And why are we pretending like everything is fine when clearly it's not? So yeah, adding caste to the census doesn't just make the data richer, it makes it honest. Additionally, making that information public doesn't just inform policymakers and help them make better laws, it shows everyone how caste actually operates in 2025. And for a lot of people in power, honesty at that level is scary. There is one man though, one man who has been relentlessly asking for transparency and honesty. He's been going at it and now the government has started to listen to him, I guess. Let's talk about this guy.
पता नहीं क्या हुआ, सडनली 11 साल बाद नरेंद्र मोदी जी कहते थे कि सिर्फ 4 जाते हैं, सडनली कास्ट सेंसस का अनाउंसमेंट किया। हम इसको सपोर्ट करते हैं, पूरी तरह सपोर्ट करते हैं, मगर हम टाइमलाइन चाहते हैं, हम जानना चाहते हैं ये कब तक होगा, और ये एक पहला कदम है।
Rahul Gandhi has been banging his drum for years now, demanding that the Indian government conduct a nationwide caste census. And recently, at a Congress Working Committee meeting, he laid it out very clearly. Him and his party have 3 demands. Demand number 1, conduct the caste census and make the data public. It's a simple ask, right? I mean, we collect caste data, we publish the caste data. Simple. But apparently, If it was so simple, they would have done it earlier. But I guess it's too difficult for the system to handle too much honesty right now. Just a reminder, even the Congress government in 2011 collected this data and then they hid it. So in a weird way, Rahul Gandhi is now calling out his own party's past mistake and pushing to fix it.
UPA and Congress came out with the idea of a caste census. And I consider it a mistake that we did not implement it then. I consider it a mistake.
Which is fine, to be honest. I mean, acknowledging mistakes in politics is quite rare. So credit where due. Well done, Mr. Gandhi. Demand number 2. Remove the 50% cap on reservations. Need to give you a little bit of background for this one. Right now, SC, STs and OBCs together get a total of 49.5% reservations in education and government jobs. The little bit of data we have on caste right now shows that this percentage, the 50%, is completely out of whack with reality. For instance, Bihar did a caste survey in 2023. There they found that the OBCs and EBCs together made up more than 63% of the population. That's right, nearly 2/3 of the state. And yet, constitutionally, they're still locked into a 27% reservation cap at the central level. 27%? 63%! Told you it's out of whack. So, this isn't about giving more reservations. It is about finally matching an existing policy with reality. In fact, that 50% ceiling was set way back in 1992. In a Supreme Court case called Indira Savane versus Union of India. Back then, the court said, yes, you can give reservations, but not more than half, unless there is something extraordinary. Well, newsflash, this is extraordinary. Estimates indicate that 20% people in India belong to upper caste or general category, while 80% belong to SC, ST and OBCs. So turns out we've been flying kind of blind for all these years till now. Building policies, implementing them without really knowing the actual numbers. You want evidence-based policy? Then you need data. You want data? Well, you need to do a caste census. Simple. That's it. And guess what? It's not impossible to do this. The ceiling has already been raised in one particular state. Tamil Nadu already has 69% reservations protected by the Constitution's 9th schedule, which basically shields certain laws from judicial review. So yeah, it is possible to add other states, the entire country, into that schedule. It is possible, and it's been done for one state. The question isn't whether we can go above 50%. The question is there anyone brave enough to do it at a national level? Now, demand number 3. They want reservations in the private sector. Now, this one is tricky because let's be honest, the private sector doesn't even want to give formal employment these days. We are in the middle of a full-blown gig economy boom. Contract work, no job security, no benefits. Forget reservations, people aren't even getting health benefits and pension options. So I'm going to give it to you straight, this third demand would be an absolute nightmare to implement. The private sector doesn't just mean desk jobs at big companies or startups. It includes our unorganized sector as well. It includes factories, brick bhattis, gutka plants, airlines, contractors who build flyovers, your neighborhood kirana wala. See the problem there? I mean, you can make a policy, but if it's not getting implemented properly, what is the point of making the policy? The private sector is not even that defined. Basically, everything that is government sector, but other than that, it is private sector. So it's not defined and it is not properly regulated. Implementing reservations onto this unknown nebulous sector would be like trying to staple jelly onto a wall. Technically it's possible, practically it's pointless. It is going to be definitely messy. But, just because it's messy doesn't mean that the demand isn't valid. Because think about it, If over 90% of India's jobs are in the private sector and if caste discrimination still exists there, which it does by the way, then how exactly are we going to fix inequality by reserving only a tiny sliver of government jobs? We are basically putting all the pressure on the public sector to solve a problem that is baked into our society as a whole. So yes, this demand opens a giant can of worms. Yes, it is going to need a completely different kind of policy thinking and labor reform conversation. Yes, it is going to piss off a lot of CEOs and LinkedIn influencers. But also, yes, it forces us to think a little beyond tokenism. And honestly, even raising this demand shifts the Overton window. What is the Overton window? I should make a separate video on that. Leave a comment below if you want a separate video on the Overton window, because I really want to make it. Leave a comment. Anyway, the point is, caste makes people uncomfortable, because if caste continues to shape opportunity everywhere in who gets hired, who gets promoted, who gets funded, then maybe we need to stop pretending that merit lives only in corporate offices and caste lives only on government forms. Speaking of which, let's talk about why. So, here's a thought that floats through every Indian living room and every angry WhatsApp forward like a bad smell. Get rid of reservations, merit hona chahiye. We want merit-based everything. Entire society should operate on merit. You'll hear it from your uncle who hasn't read the constitution but has very strong feelings about how it is being misused. You'll hear it from the CEOs who think reservation is reverse discrimination, but nepotism is culture. And you'll definitely hear it from that one classmate who got into IIT but somehow still believes their success was purely personal hard work and grit. Hell, even popular चायवाला in लखनऊ says shit like this.
आप मनुस्मृति बड़ी है कि संविधान बड़ा है? संविधान क्यों बड़ा है? मनुस्मृति बड़ी है हमारे लिए। हाँ, आपकी मनुस्मृति बड़ी है? हाँ, बिल्कुल बड़ी है। संविधान बड़ा नहीं है? संविधान नहीं बड़ा है। मनुस्मृति सही है। हाँ, मनुस्मृति सही है। मनुस्मृति सही है। हाँ, सही है। शर्मा जी, हमारा इतिहास है। शर्मा जी कौन बनाया? कौन बनाया जाति? कौन बनाया है? आपको अभी तो पढ़े होंगे आप। कौन है? आप कौन है ये बताइए? हम तो इंसान हैं। अच्छा बढ़ना चाहिए। आरक्षण बढ़ना चाहिए। आरक्षण कम होना चाहिए, खत्म होना चाहिए इस देश से। आरक्षण खत्म होना चाहिए। आरक्षण खत्म होना चाहिए। शर्मा जी, आपको क्यों लगता है कि आरक्षण खत्म होना चाहिए? आरक्षण खत्म होगा तब एक समान होंगे सब।
Sharma ji Chaiwala here loves the Manusmriti and hates the constitution. So he's clearly fine with caste discrimination as it flows from that ancient, wonderful, regressive text, but doesn't like the values of social justice in our current progressive text, which is the Constitution of India. Chaiwala uncles, I tell you, they will be the death of us. Yeah, I declare it. So let's sit down and do some basic ass brutal constitution based education. Shall we? Our constitution currently provides reservations to 3 clearly defined social classes: scheduled caste, SCs or Dalits, scheduled tribes, STs, which is Adivasis, and socially and economically backward classes, which is OBCs. And in 2019, we added a 4th one, economically weaker sections, or as I like to call them, upper caste folks with hurt feelings. As a side note, we haven't had a caste census since 1931, but that amendment which introduced the economically weaker sections was passed in 48 hours flat. Yeah, efficiency like that, that's unmatched, because, you know, upper caste folks with hurt feelings kind of run the country right now. Brutal truths. I told you I'm going to go give you brutal truths. Take it. Digest it. Live with it. You see, the way we see reservations as a concept today is not correct. We look at it as a way to get into universities or get jobs. Well, guess what? Reservation is not an employment guarantee scheme. It is not a poverty alleviation scheme. It is not charity. It is reparative justice. It's a system designed to correct centuries of social exclusion, not just economic deprivation. The constitution doesn't talk about giving jobs to people who are poor. It does talk about giving access to people who have been structurally locked out of the system in education, in representation, and in public service. And more importantly, our constitution talks about giving people dignity, social dignity. And if you are someone who still thinks that reservation is anti-merit, then let me ask you a few questions. Is it still merit if your school fees were paid by your grandfather's pension, but someone else got into the same school using a scholarship? Is it merit when you had an AC classroom, when your room had an air conditioner, when you went to English tuitions and uninterrupted power in your house and your schools and classrooms, while someone else prepared for the same exam that you gave under a lantern? Is it merit if you come from 3 generations of salaried landowning privilege, but you look down on someone who needed reservation to even get their foot in the door? If we are being honest, merit in India is just privilege in disguise, wrapped up in English medium confidence and general access. While the British built the ICS and the modern education system, upper castes were the first to benefit. And those advantages have just snowballed over generations. The truth is, even today, institutions like the IITs, often hailed as the temples of merit, they are built on centuries of caste capital. The JEE is seen as this flawless exam that filters out only the best and the brightest. But here's the plot twist. It doesn't just measure talent, it rewards preparation, access, and privilege. In 2018, for example, at IIT Madras, 255 out of 256 unreserved seats went to upper caste students. Any caste could have gone into those seats, but only 1 seat went to an OBC. So are we really saying that no one from any other background of the 80% of people that exist was meritorious enough to get into that IIT and get an unreserved seat? Or are we just refusing to see the systemic inequality baked into the test itself? Because merit isn't just some neutral cosmic force. It's constructed. And in India, it's been carefully constructed to look upper caste. Meritocracy is dangerous when it's fake. Because then those who succeed believe they deserve everything. And those who fail, they're told it's their fault. And once you accept that, you realize the real threat to merit isn't reservation. The real threat is transparency. Because once we start counting caste, once we see who has what and who still doesn't, the myth of merit starts to fall apart. It crumbles. And that, my friends, is why caste census scares the crap out of WhatsApp uncles. So, what happens if the caste census actually happens? On that, I have a bunch of thoughts. What is the big deal about a few extra boxes on a form? Why does the idea of counting caste trigger so much panic? Well, here's the thing. Once you count caste, you see caste. Once you see caste, you start to see inequality. And once you start to see inequality, well, you can't unsee it. Yeah, it's devastating to see the real face of our ugly, caste-ridden, unequal society. And not everybody has the stomach to see that. Because let's be honest, it's kind of shit. Counting caste makes power visible. And in India, real power does not like to be seen. Because if you see it, you will start asking some uncomfortable questions. Like, why do only certain surnames dominate the IS, media, judiciary and academia? Why do 80% of India's land-owning households belong to the so-called upper castes? Why does this English-speaking bearded dude get to have a YouTube channel and I don't? Yes, I'm a result of caste privilege as well. It is very evident and I am talking to you about it openly. And that's the thing, right? Privilege doesn't disappear just because you didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for it. I was born into it. So I got it anyway. And oppression doesn't stop just because you choose not to see it. I see it now and I'm doing something about it, which is I am talking about it. That's why this conversation, this thing that I'm doing about caste census is so uncomfortable for so many people, because it forces us to look at the structure, not just individuals. It's not about whether you personally worked hard. It's about whether the system let everyone else even get a chance to get where you are and try to work hard. And that's why every political party, every merit warrior, every status quo champion, they're all doing the same dance. They say they care about caste injustice, they'll chant slogans, visit temples, pose with community leaders. But when it comes to actually counting caste, yeah, suddenly it's divisive. Suddenly it's dangerous. Suddenly it's urban Naxal. Because at the end of the day, counting caste means admitting that it still exists. And if it still exists, then maybe justice demands more than just vibes, tokenism, or a tweet on Ambedkar Jayanti. And here's the real kicker. Upper castes, who dominate the general category, never have to declare their caste. They just slide in, claim to be like casteless and neutral. But the moment Dalits and OBCs get visible through reservations, suddenly it's a casteist system. Reservations is the reason why caste exists. No. Caste is the reason why reservations had to be done, you idiot. It's not like they hate caste. It's that they hate being reminded that their caste gave them certain privileges and a head start. It's like people standing in a race. An upper caste person is in the front, the rest of the 80% is piche, and they're running, doing hard work and winning, and then saying, look, I did so much hard work. Never acknowledging the head start they got because of caste. So yeah, that's why the caste census scares people, because once the data is out there, there is no going back. People will have to change, power will have to be shared, and that, my friends, is one thing that India's elites are scared shitless of across party lines. They have always resisted real structural social change. Doing the caste census, making good changes in existing reservation policies, and talking about all of this is one way we can ensure actual social justice. The caste census is not a threat to the country, it's a threat to the lie that this country is fair and runs on merit. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly why we need it. That's exactly why we need to talk about it. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you in the next one.